Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Captain Sean, and today we're going to set sail on a journey through Ana Kasparian's appearance on the Sitch Adam show. For those of you who are unaware, Ana recently sat down for about a 2-hour interview with PSA Sitch and Adam Friended. I actually think there's a lot of good information in this interview. However, I really wish, honestly and genuinely wish, that certain things were brought up that just were not during the course of this conversation. And this is largely due to the part that I've actually been following the Young Turks for years, and I've been following the change in Ana Kasparian, so a lot of the stuff that was put forward wasn't new information for me, but I think for many of you out there in the audience, it could have been new information in certain key places, and there is some gems in there that we definitely have to highlight. But congratulations to Sitch and Adam for being able to get this together. We got what we got, so let's delve into it. But first, let's talk about my website, actualjusticewarrior.com/join, where you get early access to the videos via the secret video page. Thank you to all of my members who have signed up so far. Really appreciate you.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And of course, the podcast listeners, Apple, Spotify, and Google's podcasting platform.
The one, I guess, through line you'll notice in the various things that we're going to talk about in this conversation is that it just became abundantly clear to me that where I was getting my information, and I'm not just talking about independent lefty outlets. I'm talking about legacy media outlets, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of them, it's not that they report misinformation, it's that they omit details of the story that would, maybe the additional details of the story don't change your mind at all, right? But it's not up to them to decide that. We should know every detail.
So one of the things that I find interesting about this conversation is that Ana owns up to the idea that there is a cutoff or a bubble, as is often the overused phrase here on the internet.com, around her network, around her, that she is trying to escape, and that led her to really terrible coverage of cases, specifically like the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Now, Sitch and Adam actually give her a lot of credit for her in the middle of a video retraction on certain key details of Kyle Rittenhouse.
Talking about earlier, and one of the things that we always commended you on was, when you publicly came out and you said that you were wrong about the Rittenhouse video, which, most people, when they make a mistake, they just try to hide it or they try to shift blame. Jimmy Dore very, famously shifted blame to his producer. And I thought it was really commendable that you came out and you're like, no, I got this wrong. And you were trying to show, not just do this for your sake, but just say listen, audience, you need to understand that this is the story, and I don't want you guys to have the wrong information.
And I will say, of all the things that I've given Ana Kasparian credit for over the past year, this is just not one of them. I covered that video specifically. She got a bunch of things wrong and added in a bunch of new misinformation related to that case. However, I will say I do appreciate her now looking back and acknowledging that this was in fact a self-defense case, even though this specifically.
And so, okay, with the Rittenhouse story, I was going to cover the trial, and I just needed to go back and just really, really look at all of the details and remember all the details. So when I do the story, I get the facts right. And then as I'm doing that, I come across a New York Times video. And this was a really, really well done video that they posted on YouTube that showed you in slow motion, how everything transpired that night. Mm-hmm. And once you see it for yourself, it's really, really difficult to argue that in those moments, he was not acting in self-defense. And this is an area where, Cenk and I disagree because, if someone's hitting you over the head with a skateboard, that could kill you. And so, Cenk is he's a strong-minded person, and he's not one to back down from a fight. So in his mind, someone confronts you with a skateboard, he doesn't see it as a threat, but I do. And Rittenhouse is not a big burly guy who can defend himself against someone who's hitting him over the head with a skateboard as he's lying on his back.
Has created outrage amongst people on the left because Ana says put in the same scenario, she would have acted similarly. And by the way, this is unsurprising to me. Ana Kasparian's a woman. I don't know how tall she is. I don't got all of those details on the fly ready to go. But a woman being attacked by men is obviously going to want a force multiplier more than a bigger male would in that similar scenario. So it actually makes perfect sense for Ana, if she's holding a gun, in this hypothetical, obviously, she wouldn't be in that position, to react in a similar way when being attacked. This is why when I saw that there were a bunch of women on the jury, I knew that actually cut in favor of Kyle Rittenhouse, because they would imagine themselves in his position, and obviously you would want to be able to defend yourself from those attackers. But I also found it interesting that Ana Kasparian referenced a bunch of other things that she got wrong.
So once I saw all those details, first of all, I had to convey them to my audience and be honest about what the reality was. The other thing was, there was a lot of misreporting about how Kyle Rittenhouse was in possession of an illegal weapon and that he crossed state lines with that illegal weapon.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Okay,
Yep.
So that was a lie. And it's not a lie that I just made up in my mind, right? That was how it was reported initially, which is why I would mention the state lines.
Oh my God, what is that? I don't get what's going on.
But not because, oh, how dare he cross state lines?
No, I don't know how I'm having this reaction.
Anyone in this country has the right to cross state lines.
Okay.
It was because it was reported that he was in possession of an illegal gun,
Right.
and he traveled across state lines with an illegal gun.
Oh my God, I feel something. I feel a montage. I feel a compilation appearing.
Wouldn't go out of his way to go to a protest, who crossed state lines. He drove from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now again, he drove from Illinois to Wisconsin. It's not like he was in his front yard and he was approached by a group of individuals who posed an imminent threat to his life. He drove across state lines in a state that he doesn't even live in, because obviously we're dealing with a 17-year-old from out of state, and then he crossed state lines with it. He crossed state lines, meaning he traveled across state lines. He traveled there from out of state, who again traveled across state lines. So he did not cross state lines with an illegal gun.
Now look, I'm not saying that the whole universe revolves around me. I would never say that, because my marketing team has specifically advised me against doing so. However, and I do mean how and then ever, Ana Kasparian referencing the Cross State Lines compilation, considering that this is something that was pointed out by me in particular from day 2 after the event actually took place, as a dumb talking point from the left, I made the compilation, the whole thing, obviously, was me getting through to her head, even if it was tangentially about this stupid talking point. And I also want to point out that transporting a firearm across state lines is not illegal. This is why I highlighted this from the jump. Obviously, you're allowed to do that. You could bring a firearm on a plane. And of course, this never had any impact on anything related to the case, because Kyle was being charged for his actions in Wisconsin. Now, of course, people at the Young Turks, Jank included, still like to pretend that Kyle went to a random community. Again, he lived 15 minutes away. His father lived there. His best friend lived there. His grandmother lived there. And he worked there. This was not some foreign community to him. Jank continues to lie about this, but I do appreciate Ana Kasparian actually acknowledging the reality of the case. Again, you have Rosenbaum, who hid behind a car, ambushed Kyle Rittenhouse on video. We have the drone video that shows this. I've showed it on this channel multiple different times. Chased him into a parking lot. Kyle turns around, points the gun at him while being chased, then continues to run because he didn't want to shoot this person. Then when he gets caught up between a bunch of cars, Rosenbaum lunges at Rittenhouse, gets a hand on the gun according to the DNA evidence, and then Kyle Rittenhouse fires. Obviously, in a situation under a state law where he does not have a duty to retreat, Kyle Rittenhouse retreated and only fired as his least possible option. Obviously, if you're carrying a firearm, it's the most notable thing about you, and somebody comes up to you to try to take that firearm, you have a moral obligation to defend yourself and defend other people by proxy by not letting this madman get the firearm. So Rosenbaum had no right to disarm Kyle. Kyle had every right to defend himself against Rosenbaum, and you are presenting a deadly threat when you go for a firearm. There is no ambiguity about whether or not this was self-defense. It's all caught on video. It was shown in the trial. It was all available video 15 minutes after the incident, and it's nice to see Ana Kasparian actually acknowledge it, even though people on the left are attacking her for it.
Then there was the attacks on straight news journalists who were doing their jobs. For instance, when Lee Fong was reporting on the BLM protests. When he was accurately reporting on the BLM protests and some of the violence that took place during those protests. His own colleagues at The Intercept tried to paint him as a racist. I've known Li Fang for many, many years, since I started working at TYT. Guy doesn't have a racist bone in his body. For them to paint him in that way, I thought was disgusting, and it had a chilling effect, right? The whole point is to intimidate journalists from doing accurate reporting on what's actually occurring on the ground.
Now, she also talks about people that she knows that have been attacked on the streets doing reporting, either covering the Black Lives Matter riots or covering trans-related stuff. She mentions this guy that I've never actually heard of called Jesse Singal. I actually ended up looking him up, and what I can find from reading his articles is that this is a guy who's pro-transgender.
Then there was what happened to Jesse Singal, which I found disgusting. I didn't know about that until at some point this year, I would say earlier this year.
With the trans stuff? Jesse's been on the show before. Yeah, he's done great.
Jesse Singal is a good faith, I think, critical thinker. I'm subscribed to Blocked and Reported. I have listened to endless podcast episodes from Blocked and Reported. I haven't seen anything from Jesse Singal that communicates to me that he is a transphobe, that he is a bad person. He did straight news reporting on basically what, some of the risks could be when it comes to transitioning literal kids.
Which, by the way, very notable that he has to or feels the need to write that at the beginning of his articles related to this topic. However, when he delves into the research, which, by the way, I will link this piece in the description of this video, he finds that the studies supposedly supporting the need for treatment, including that Cornell systemic review, which actually is being referred to by a lot of people as a meta-analysis of a bunch of different studies, does not stand up to scrutiny. Not for any other medical category would we accept this level of research. However, not only are you supposed to accept this when it comes to the transes, including the transes children, but you also have to accept this beyond the level of any other science ever put forward in the history of mankind. It's absurd. It's ridiculous that this person is being labeled a transphobe for that, and since Ana Kasparian has been listening to his show or something like that, she finds it ridiculous that he's just being smeared viciously as a transphobe. Now, they also brought up something that I talk about, which is the whole Leftist Mafia thing and Anna's whole spot with them, and specifically what Olay tried to do to Ana because she had no argument against what Ana was saying.
So what is some of the reaction that you have gotten to that?
Well, I mean, the reaction has not been great. I mean, look, that Leftist Mafia stream was unbelievable to me. Like the accusations that were thrown out there, Olay implying that I'm racist because as a woman, I don't want to be called a birthing person. Like race didn't come up at all until she brought it up. And then she was the only one on that stream who brought race into it and like made it abundantly clear that she's got an issue with white women and just thinks they're all the same and like, whatever. and then after I basically called her out on it, she's like, "Oh, you're attacking me and only me because I'm Black." And it's like, no, you're the only one in that group of people who attacked me and accused me of being racist because I personally want to be called a woman. So, I mean,
I'm not sure that they fully understand the damage that accusation can do. And if they do, that makes it even more.
They understand.
Okay.
Now, I've talked about this. I've referenced this on the channel multiple different times. But essentially, Ana said she wanted to be called a birthing person on Twitter. People attacked Ana for saying that because they said she was playing into the transes phobias. And oh my God, Ana's such a horrible person. We hate Ana. The whole 9 yards. The Leftist Mafia did their stupid stream. And in the stream, they pretended like, oh, Ana's such a good friend. But then they viciously attacked her, smeared her as this evil white lady, which of course Olay had to invoke race because that's the only card that Olay has. She cried about the fact that she did an appearance on their show debating prison abolitionism, which by the way is a stupid position for Olay to have, and that is just not an intelligent place to be. And she didn't like the fact that the Young Turks didn't bend over backwards and kiss her rear end in order to please the radical progressive audience. So they end up doing this stream. Ana ends up calling it out, and then you have weasels like the Serfs, who of course had all this nasty, biting, negative commentary, was just snickering and laughing in the background, not challenging anything being put forward.
I have to say it. Oh my God, I have to say it. I like Ana, but I feel a little bit like this is the coddle the white lady hour. And you know why? And you know why? I thought
the best thing about this clip is just that Lance is just here for it and Lance is asshole. So I saw the memes, by the way. I saw a bunch of people who just took screenshots of me laughing non-stop
against somebody who was actually a colleague of his, who actually gave him an opportunity to come on their show. And he, of course, tried to weasel around it by saying, oh, well, at the beginning of my stream, I said a nice thing about you, therefore you're attacking me out of nowhere. And the Serfs, like the weaselly scumbag that he is, of course, cut together Jank being mad at him with the nice things that the Serf said at the beginning of the stream to make it seem like Jank was just going crazy defending Ana out of nowhere, even though the Serfs was so nice. No, they weren't. That's a gaslighting tactic. It's very manipulative, and it's basically what I would expect from the Serfs, who can never address a point honestly. And of course, he is one of the dumbest people on the internet.com. Remember when we were discussing teen pregnancy in the black community, and the Serfs actually put forward, no joke, the condom usage rates of gay black men as a response to a teen pregnancy question. And then when I pointed this out, he doubled down. And then when I made fun of him, he doubled down for over a year, to the point where people were mocking him to where he just stopped talking about it. He never admitted that he was wrong. He never admitted how stupid of a point it was. He just went on with it until he was harassed about it for a year. And of course, tried to make these like weird appeals to discuss, saying that I was obsessed with the gay black men, even though, again, I was pointing out what he pointed out. That's who the Serfs is. An absolute fool when it comes to these topics, and a liar through and through. And I give credit to Ana Kasparian for calling out all these people on their BS. Now, there were some other portions of this conversation that I found very interesting, like the fact that Ana knows for a fact that the Amy Cooper thing, the Central Park Karen thing, is absolute nonsense. Now, she says she saw something from Camille Foster.
I think the Amy Cooper story is another example. You know, it was fairly recently I came across Camille Foster's very in-depth investigation into that story. And there were so many details of that story that were intentionally omitted or left out of the legacy media reporting of it. And that painted a picture in my mind and in the minds of many others that, you know, there's no justification for the way that she was, you know, panicking when she was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher, right? But then you get this, then you find out, based on what Camille Foster had found out and reported, was that like she didn't have good cell reception. So the person on the other end of that conversation couldn't hear her. She was panicking because she genuinely thought that she was at risk after, here's another thing that was omitted in a lot of the reports, after she was literally threatened by the bird watcher, right? Who said, right, you know, if you're going to do what you want, I'm going to do what I want, and you're not going to like it. And then he proceeds to try to lure her dog to him. And listen, you might still feel that her behavior was uncalled for, whatever, that's up to you. But you should know all those details. And I will say, from my personal opinion, if I'm alone at a park and some random guy tries to lure my dog away from me, I'm going to freak out, you know, like I just am.
I want to also point out that this is yet another instance of the leftist bubble taking hold, because Christian Cooper's original Facebook post actually showed that he was the one in the wrong in that situation. He was threatening to take this woman's dog. That's why she freaked out. Again, corner a woman without regarding race, any race, that considers herself a dog mom, alone in a park, start giving her orders, and then when she doesn't follow your orders, threaten to take their dog and see what happens to you. See if you don't get the police called on you each and every time. And Ana points out that she saw this podcast, found out that the police couldn't even hear her, so they were telling her to speak up. That's why she was yelling. And all of this behavior can be explained by the situation that she was found in. On top of that, we found out from a black person who was walking his dog in the park that he also got into a similar altercation with Christian Cooper, who of course was complained about repeatedly for harassing people walking their dogs because he was an avid bird watcher. And of course, he was in fact the actual Karen in that situation. So Ana acknowledges that's fake, even though recently they were doing it, like when they were pushing the City Bike Karen hoax on the damage report with John Iadarola and Emma Vigeland. They showed that exact same video, repeated the myth, and again, this is an incident of the left destroying this woman's life for the fun of it because she was a white woman who dared to get into an argument with the black person that the black person started.
And then the other thing that I do now is I just wait. You know, I think the story involving the so-called city bike Karen is a good example of that. The main show, because TYT consists of many different shows, right? The show that I'm the executive producer and host of is the main flagship show, The Young Turks. Mm-hmm. And prior to that story breaking, I had a meeting with my team and I was like, listen, I don't want you guys pitching stories about random individuals in the country who are caught in an out of context video allegedly behaving badly. I think these stories are divisive. I don't think we usually have the full details before we talk about these stories. And honestly, at the end of the day, engaging in these witch hunts is actually causing more division and hate in the country than anything else. Now, there are a bunch of other shows on the network that I have no say over, that I have no control over, who, you know, inaccurately reported on it and had to issue retractions. They had to take videos down and all that stuff. And I just think that was a teachable moment, hopefully a teachable moment for everyone in the company.
So I give credit to Ana in this situation for acknowledging what happened. And I also give credit to her because I do look, whenever these stories go viral, to the Young Turks for bad reaction for using her role as executive producer to not put forward these stories. Now, she also points out that other places on the network, of course, have their own editorial and they make those decisions. So they run with these bad stories all the time. But that's not what Ana wants to do, and that's a change that she's saying the reason why, and we could actually see in its effects on the show.
So that was one of the pivotal moments, but honestly, I would say everything for me started when I started getting gaslit on the crime wave. And it's really interesting to talk about these various political issues in the abstract. But then once you personally experience something and once you see something happening in the country with your own two eyes and your political side is incessantly gaslighting you on it, it makes you question, well, what else are you guys lying about? Or what else are you guys gaslighting about? And that's what happened. So, you know, during the pandemic, there was absolutely a crime wave in the country, mostly in like major cities. Los Angeles happened to be one of them. And, you know, I talked about how I, you know, was assaulted.
Now, of course, Ana also talks about being personally victimized, and obviously this is a traumatic situation. I wish she did call the police and do a follow-up on that so she could get these people arrested, but she also highlights the fact that people attacked her for coming forward related to this incident, which is ridiculous and absurd, and not something you would expect of your friends to do. I remember when we first heard about this, we first got this story from Ana Kasparian, and I talked about it, and I said, look, it could happen to anybody. There's this attitude sometimes in the comment section that's like, oh, well, people like this vote left wing, therefore that's what they voted for. But let's be real, nobody intentionally votes for a bunch of homeless people to be sexual assaulters on the streets. On top of that, it is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal that grants all these God-tier rights to homeless people, not necessarily the voters in the state of California. On top of that, if you listen to what Ana Kasparian advocated for before, it was reform around certain drug-related arrests and non-violent instances. Now, I hate the term non-violent instances because I always say Bernie Madoff never punched anybody in the face, but he ruined significantly more people's lives than any individual murderer probably, based on his impact on society, on the economy, and on those people who lost their livelihoods, their retirements, and all of that. But what I'm concerned about is the victimless crimes. And I think if I were to explain that to somebody like Ana, that's what she would say she was concerned about. And by the way, those are some reforms that I would have been in favor of. But California, like many of these states, did the ultimate bait and switch on these people. And they're releasing violent repeat offenders, allowing open air drug markets. And this is not something that anybody has signed up for. And to give credit to Ana Kasparian, this is something that she has spoken out about in public before and after her incident that happened with these two homeless individuals.
Well, actually, let me give you the details again, because there's an element to that story that I've never shared with anyone that also explains where my head's at now. So, as I was walking my dog one day, there were these two guys. They appeared to be homeless. They appeared to be on something. They looked like they might be methed out or something because they were kind of acting erratically. But, typically when I come across guys like that, if I ignore them, they won't do anything.
Right.
That wasn't the case this time around. They're coming toward me, and my dog, Charlie, like, he does his business. And as I bend over to pick up his business, one of them grabs me by my hips and just, like, with an erection and everything, just starts, like, humping me, like,
wow.
right there in, like, broad daylight. And
right.
It was terrifying because, like, I didn't have any weapon with me, no taser, no pepper spray, nothing.
Wow.
And luckily the guy, he did that, and then he and his friend walk away while they're, like, laughing at me. And I felt so degraded, scared. And, like, the first thing I did is I called my husband, and he came down and he's like, where are they? And he started looking for them. We couldn't find them.
For me, I find it very troubling that friends, people who've met Ana Kasparian in person, people who are aligned with her, hear about her victimization, and they're more angry about her talking about it in public, about her discussing what happened to her and what she went through, than the fact that it actually happened, that these kind of instances are increasing in frequency because they're in full crime denial mode.
Which, by the way, I want to say something about abortion. As someone who is firmly in favor of reproductive rights, I want to tell you guys and your audience that the vast majority of us do not agree with what Lance said on Tim Pool's show. We don't.
Nice.
I don't know why he said that, and
Nice.
I was like mortified when he said that.
What did he say that you're talking about specifically?
So first off, Tim gave him, like, a ridiculous hypothetical of, like, a healthy pregnancy at 9 months, and the woman just decides, like, I went through the torture of being pregnant for 9 months, and I've decided to end my healthy pregnancy, right before I'm going to deliver.
Right.
No one's in favor of that. Okay, no one, literally no one. I guess except for Lance, because the problem with Lance is and the problem with these bad faith debates is that he wants to win. So when you're not engaging in a good faith debate, you then end up agreeing to things or saying you support things that you might not actually support. So I don't know what Lance really thinks.
Now, this has to be one of my favorite parts of this whole segment, which is where Ana Kasparian makes fun of the serfs, because this was just a glorious experience. It was absolutely amazing, and we all know Lance of the Serfs definitely deserves it. Lance of the Serfs, one of the dumbest people on the far left, and even though he worked with Ana Kasparian, knew Cenk Uygur, he decided to go right up Ole's back end right when she was attacking Ana in the most unfair way humanly possible in order to get those virtue points, in order to side with the far left, and he's constantly making an embarrassment of himself, constantly backstabbing people when it's convenient. He is a man of no loyalty, no principles, absolute weakness through and through, and he's incredibly dumb. There has never been a salient point ever put forward by the serfs. It's never happened, and it's funny for Ana to make fun of him for being in favor of aborting viable babies right before the moment of birth, while the woman is dilating, and we covered that on this channel. It was hilarious. The serfs made an ass of himself, and we all enjoyed it. A+ material. Tim Pool, who is not the most hardcore debater or anything like that, who is pro-choice himself, essentially let Lance, who brought up that topic, walk himself into that trap, and it was enjoyable for everybody the world over. We all laugh at you, serfs. We all laugh at you, Lance. You deserve it, and now Ana Kasparian is coming after you as well. Also, a very notable portion of the interview with Sitch Adam was this section right here, where Ana says that she was actually reported to HR for her tweets related to not wanting to be referred to as a birthing person.
Go
so
ahead.
far, no one's approached me. No one's approached me to tell me, like, I can't believe you're saying this, or, I can't, I'm very angry at you. No one's done that.
Okay.
However, 2 people have reported me to HR. So
What?
Yeah.
What? You're already getting reports
something
to
specific
HR?
or just a general?
My tweet saying that I'd like to be referred to, that I personally would like to be referred to as a woman and not a birthing person.
Wow.
That upset some people, and they reported me to HR. I'm happy to report that HR's response was, she didn't do anything wrong. You know, she can't get in trouble for sharing her opinion on this.
Now, immediately, when I heard that, I thought of one person at TYT, even though Ana Kasparian has made it clear that it was actually two different individuals that did so, and that was, of course, Benny, who appears on a bunch of segments related to the Young Turks and has genuinely terrible takes. Now, I kept that to myself, was going to leave that out of the video, but I just found out that Benny quit TYT, and one of the reasons cited for quitting TYT was Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygur's blatant transphobia, transphobia, and all of that. So while it's not confirmed, I'm going to assume that this is a more likely than not kind of situation. Now look, overall, it's a fine interview. I think you should watch it in its full context if you guys aren't aware of this whole situation. I think it's quite interesting, but I do think there is this idea, and it comes from the right and from the left, that everything is a grift, that there is no legitimate change or anything like that. But the thing is, that's not how people work. People change their positions over the years, and we're in a situation right now where Ana Kasparian changing her positions on certain issues, which by the way is getting a lot of backlash from her friends, might not even be the best financial path forward. They addressed in the beginning this idea of Ana going to the Daily Wire. That was never going to happen ever in a million years, and she pointed that out in the beginning of the stream. So what we're seeing is that she's making changes that don't necessarily make her more popular or more financially viable on a progressive network, while at the same time she's being attacked by some of her closest friends in the space for years. They're essentially trying to force her into the confines of a cult, so it's not really helpful for people to say, oh, Ana is grifting because Ana's talking sensibly about crime, and she's actually explaining the origins of her thought path, and I think that should be something that we should all look at. Now, I will say, Ana in the past has been incredibly unfair to people who have moved from the left to the right wing, even if it was in a more dramatic way. But some of those cases, they were less dramatic moves towards the right in Ana's opinion, and she's attacked them as the false left and all of that. It would have been interesting for Ana to address any of that on Sitch and Adam, but again, Sitch and Adam were doing the interview. They wanted to talk about what they wanted to talk about, so I can't really say anything in that regard.
I'm not. I think Ana followed Sean on Twitter.
Yeah,
and she seems like maybe. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen his videos, so maybe, like, depending upon how terrible his video is, maybe she'll actually talk to.
Let's
Sean.
say aggressive, right? But yeah,
aggressive.
Listen, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a better.
If Sean wants to reach out to her for a conversation, yeah. It'd be interesting if she'll go down for it.
Now, of course, at the end, Adam and Sitch say that I should do an interview or something of the sort with Ana Kasparian, and honestly, this is not something that I'm going to reach out to try to make happen, and here's the reason why. If Ana Kasparian comes on, she should understand that I'm not Sitch and Adam. Sitch and Adam are considered more moderate, even though to the radical left, they're considered right-wing and boosting up the right wing. So the backlash that she would get for appearing with them is nowhere near the backlash that she would get for talking to me. And also, I've been a serious critic of the Young Turks for years. I have a bunch of different issues that might make this situation completely uncomfortable. And also, I don't like to personally reach out to anybody behind the scenes to set anything up. So I'm open to a conversation, but I think it needs to be initiated on the part of their side, of Ana's side, not on my side. I'm not going to try to set her up for a fall, and it should be done with a full understanding that the backlash from talking to somebody like me probably significantly higher than the other way around. That's all I really have to say on that particular issue. Really appreciate Sitch and Adam calling me out to do that on the show. Not really, but it's okay. I still like you guys, and I still appreciate you guys. So yeah, maybe at some point in the future, but for me, like in my opinion, it's not really the nicest thing to do to say, hey buddy, come on my show. I'm gonna get all the benefit. A bunch of people are gonna watch it. I'm gonna get a bunch of super chats. It's going to be amazing for me in every possible way, but you will be smeared by everybody on your side. You will be attacked repeatedly by everybody on your side. You will have the guilt by association for things that I've never said that are smears about me that are often put out, and all of that backlash that you experience from Sitch and Adam will be about tenfold just for doing the conversation with me. I don't think that's the best possible thing for me to offer somebody. So again, I can't really make that and say, oh, it's going to be totally fine, when I know for a fact that the backlash might be too much for somebody like Ana to deal with in that regard. So I will not be reaching out. I will be open to a conversation, but again, you have to understand the full weight of actually doing something like that, and you have to understand the difference in kind and in scale that you would get from Sitch Adam versus me, because I have specific issues that I want to talk about, specific opinions on cases, and, you know, getting people to commit to those positions on air, pretty difficult, pretty big problem. Don't look for that in the future. I mean, if it happens, it happens, but I'm still waiting on the possibility at some point in time in the future that Ana, who I actually think of everybody on the Young Turks would address this, addresses the Gavin Long thing that I made a video about. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Ana on Sitch and Adam. Till next time.